Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
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 Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Pura Bhakta Vrinda.
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 Reading from the Sri Caitanya-caritamrita, Antya Lila, chapter 3, the glories of Haridas Thakur, text 61. Namavasahaytahaya sarvapapagaya. I chant it anyway. Saite. From the vibration of Namabhas. Haya is Sarva Papa, all reactions to sin. Saya, destruction. Translation. Good morning. Namacharya Haridas Thakur continued, if one offensively utters the holy name, even imperfectly, one can be freed from all the results of sinful life. Tam nirvyajan bhajagunanidhi pavanam pavananam Shradarajan matirapitaram muktamaslokamonim Projan antakaranaku hare hantayan namavana Abhasupik sapayati mahapatakadvantarasim. O reservoir of all good qualities, just worship Sri Krishna, the purifier of all purifiers, the most exalted of the personalities, worshipped by choice poetry. Worship him with a faithful That's okay, it's just how it is. I brought a chart for this. So, I'll start again. O reservoir of all good qualities, just worship Sri Krishna, the purifier of all purifiers, the most exalted of the personalities, worshipped by choice poetry. Worship him with a faithful, unflinching mind, without duplicity, in a highly elevated manner. Thus worship the Lord, whose name is like the sun. For just as a slight appearance of the sun dissipates the darkness of night, so a slight appearance of the holy name can drive away all the darkness of ignorance that arises in the heart due to greatly sinful activities performed in previous life. This verse is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.1.103. It's a very nice verse. Srila Prabhupada didn't really write a serious purport to it, but I particularly like the purifier of all purifiers. I mean, anyone always gets purified by chanting Hare Krishna. Whatever is pure becomes more pure by association with Krishna. That is the nature of Krishna. So not only is Krishna the supreme pure, but he is the supreme purifier. And that means that any time, any connection with Krishna, Krishna Sambandha, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha, that's our only hope. Otherwise what are we going to do? No? Being from this age of Kali, how else are we going to make it? But simply, if we have to do it by good resolve, good resolutions, right? From now on, I will, doesn't work. Not for long. Promises are in themselves not enough. We can promise many things, but it's very difficult to maintain. But Krishna being the supreme purifier, and that is not only an imaginary thing or something very subtle that you cannot perceive. Rather, that is a very perceivable thing. We see people change. That is the amazing thing in this movement. In the beginning, one may challenge, and one may say, what's the proof? What's the proof of your philosophy? But stay around for a while and see how people change. They do change. Not necessarily that then there is no more trace of impurity remaining. That can go on for quite some time, because Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has addressed that in the Madhurya Kadambini, and has explained that even in bhava there is a tinge of material influence still present. So, as we are getting more advanced in the process of devotional service, we become more purified in the sense that our attachment to Krishna grows. It says in the beginning, the Krishna consciousness is like a little speck, and Maya is all-pervading. And that's sort of the situation. A tiny speck of Krishna consciousness, and Maya is everywhere. And then eventually, Maya becomes localized, limited, and Krishna consciousness becomes prominent. That is at the stage of Nistha. At that stage, Maya is at some distance. When Ruchi appears, Maya is still further away. When it is said, Vishnu says, then the entire surface of the entire consciousness becomes covered with text. Then, with a Shakti, with attachment, it goes deep under the surface. At that stage, the influence of Maya is at a great distance, a speck on the horizon. And at Baba, he says, it's just a shadow. A shadow. And then Rupa Goswami continues to explain on the same point and says that at that time, in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and he says that, yes, in Baba there is still a sense of the 5 kleshas, of the different types of sufferings that exist in the material world. So still some sense of suffering is remaining. Whereas in Prem, there is no sense of suffering at all. In Prem, everything is fine. Here we are suffering in the material world simply because we're suffering in our own consciousness. That's basically what it says. If you sum it up, you're just suffering in your consciousness. But in truth of the matter, we're not suffering at all. When finally the curtain is lifted, then there is no suffering. But it's hard for us currently to come to that stage. Some people, they suffer better than others. Some people are terrible sufferers. Right? They just don't know how to suffer at all. Right? But everyone suffers, that's for sure. There's no way around it. So, except in Krishna Prem, no trace of suffering. Rupa Goswami continues and says that in Baba, the reason for that suffering, he says, because there is still a trace of Vaishnava Parama. Shri Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So a trace of Vaishnava Aparat is the last thing that remains, even in Baba. So that is interesting, because we can see how important it is to somehow or other completely avoid offending the Vaishnavas. And it's not easy. It is not easy. In our conditioned state, it's not easy at all. It comes very natural to somehow or other, a little bit, I mean, of course, I don't want to criticize, anyone, but but I'm doing it anyway. So, what is the problem? Anyhow, whatever may be, can you not ring that bell? I am the bell. Hare Krishna Pujari, I am the bell. You don't need to ring the bell, I am the bell. It says in Shastra, the speaker is the bell. The bell is kirtan. Nama Vasa Haita Hayasan Sarira Saya. Even a faint light from the holy name of the Lord can eradicate all the reactions of sinful life. I forgot which one was on the board, but 80. Well, that's a long way to go. There are purports. No, I'm saying because, so I am allowed to speak. And we don't speak on a verse that doesn't have purport out of respect for Srila Prabhupada. So, because why would we think if he didn't comment, then I, Kadamba Kanana Swami, will now say something very deep and profound, which Prabhupada didn't explain. No, therefore, but when Prabhupada said this is a verse from Bhagavatam, it's still counted. Mriyamano Harinama Grihan Putro Pracharitam Ajamilo Pyagaddama Kimuttasralya Grinan. While dying, Ajamil chanted the holy name of the Lord, intending to call his son Narayan. Nevertheless, he attained the spiritual world. What then to speak of those who chant the holy name with faith and reverence? So in the previous verse, 63, it was said, even a faint light from the holy name of the Lord can eradicate all the reactions of sinful life, referring to Namabhas. Then an example is given here that Ajamil chanted in that mood of Namabhas, that he was, because he was accidentally chanting the name of the Lord. Namabhas mukti hoye sarva shastra dekhi shi bhagavate tata ajamil saksi. Because of even the faintest rays of the effulgence of the Lord's holy name, one can attain liberation. We can see this all in the revealed scriptures. The evidence appears in the story of Ajamil in Srimad Bhagavatam. Suniya Prabhu Sukha, Bhavya Untare, Punarapi Bhangi Kare, Chaytanya. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this from Haridas Thakur, the happiness within his heart increased. But as a matter of course, he still inquired further. I could, of course, also have chosen a verse today, and but then we say Nitya Bhagavata Seveya. We say that we are just doing the eternal service to the Bhagavatam by glorying the Bhagavatam. So today you're reading from Caitanya-caritamrita. That is also Bhagavatam. It is Caitanya-caritamrita is simply an extension of the Bhagavatam, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lives Srimad Bhagavatam. So the descriptions of Caitanya-caritamrita are Bhagavatam, are no different from Bhagavatam. Because these are also the descriptions of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So in this way, I like to, of course you can do both, you can select a verse, but I like to just follow the sequence of the book and let the book speak for itself. After all, the book is no different from Krishna, and Krishna is the purifier of all the purifiers, so simply reading Caitanya-caritamrita will purify. Pritivita Bahu Jiva Stavara Jangama Iyasava Ki Prakare Evamocha. On this earth, there are many living entities, the Lord said, some moving and some not moving. What will happen to the trees, plants, insects, and other living entities? How will they be delivered from material bondage? Haridas Kahe Prabhu Se Kripa Tomar Stavara Jangama Aki Kariyachanista. Haridas Thakur replied, my dear Lord, the deliverance of all moving and non-moving living entities takes place only by your mercy. You have already granted this mercy and delivered them. Tumi ek kariyache, e ucha sankirtana, stavara jangana seyaleta shaman. You have loudly chanted the Hare Krishna mantra, and everyone moving or not moving is benefited by hearing it. Suniya jangamirahaya sansara ksaya, stavara se shabdalava pratidvani. My Lord, the moving entities who have heard your loud sankirtana have already been delivered from bondage to the material world. And after the non-moving living entities, like trees, hear it, there's an echo. Prati dvani nahe se karaya kirtan. Toma kripa e akache. So, actually, however, it is not an echo. It is the kirtan of the non-moving living entities. All this although inconceivable, is possible by your mercy. Sakala jagata hai uccha sankirtan sunya prenavesha najas tavadana. When loud chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is performed all over the world by those who follow in your footsteps, all living entities, moving and non-moving, tense in ecstatic devotional love. My dear, all the incidents that took place while you were going to Vrindavan, to the forest known as Jarikanda, have been related to me by your servant Radhadesh Bhattacharya. Vasudev Jiga Lagi Kaila Nivedan, Davangi Gari Kaila Jiva Mocha. When your devotee Vasudev Datta submitted his plea at your lotus feet for the deliverance of all living entities, you accepted that request. Jagat Nistarita Ito Marahutta, Bhaktavava Agatate Kaila Amrita. My dear Lord, you've accepted the form of a devotee just to deliver all the fallen souls of this world. Uccha Sankirtan Tata Karila Prachar, Stira Chari Jivere Sabha, Gandaira Sansara. You've preached the loud chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and in this way, freed from all moving and non-moving living entities from material bondage. Prabhukai Sabhajiva Mukti Javipali, Eta Brahman Letava Jiva, Sunyaham. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, if all living entities are liberated, the entire universe will be devoid of living entities. Haridas Pali, Tomare Javat Marchistiti, Tavat Stavra Jamna, Sarva Jiva, Sabha Mukta Kari Tome, Tumi Vaikum Terpatayava, Sukshma Jiva, Buna Karma, Void Buddha Kari. Haridas said, my Lord, as long as you are situated in the material world, you will send to the spiritual sky all the developed, moving and non-moving living entities in different species. Then again, you will awaken the living entities who are not yet developed and engage them in activities. And then we come to text 8. Say Jiva Bhaveyan Stavara Jangama. Say Jiva Bhaveyan Stavara Jangama. Tahate Varive Brahmanda Yena Purvasam. Tahate Varive Brahmanda Yena Purvasam. Say Jiva Bhaveyan Stavara Jangama. Say Jiva Bhaveyan Stavara Jangama. Tahate Varive Brahmanda Yena Purvasam. Tahate Varive Brahmanda Yena Purvasam. Two people can chant. Jiva Bhaveyan Stavara Jangama. Say Jiva Bhaveyan Stavara Jangama. Tahate Varive Brahmanda Yena Purvasam. Tahate Varive Brahmanda Yena Purvasam. And one of the ladies.
Say Jiva Bhaveyan Stavara Jangam.
Say Jiva Bhaveyan Stavara Jangam.
Tahate Varive Brahmanda Yena Purvasam.
Tahate Varive Brahmanda Yena Purvasam.
Okay. In this way, all moving and non-moving living entities will come into existence, and the entire universe will be filled as it was previously. Purport. While we are preaching, opposing arguments sometimes argue, if all living entities were delivered by the Krishna consciousness movement, what would happen then? The universe would be devoid of living entities. In answer to this, we may say that in a prison there are many prisoners, but if one thinks the prison would be empty if all the prisoners adopted good behavior, it is incorrect. Even if all the prisoners within jail are free, other criminals will fill it again. A prison will never be vacant, for there are many prospective criminals who will fill the prison cells. Even if the present criminals are freed by the government. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 13:22, Karanam Nasango Sya Sata Sat Yoni Janmasu. Because of the living entities' association with material nature, he meets with good and evil among various species. There are many unmanifested living entities covered by the modes of material nature who will gradually come to the mode of goodness, who will gradually come to the mode of passion Most of them will become criminals because of their fruitive activities and again fill prisons. So we see that many living beings who are completely inert, they are described as suksma jivas. They are in a state of like complete inactivity. And it said the living beings are sarvagaha. The living beings are in between the atoms. They are everywhere. So even the molecules are full of living entities. So the entire universe is just pervaded with living entities everywhere. And it said that many of these living entities are simply in a subtle state of ignorance, of complete inactivity. But such living entities then come to the mode of passion. And then Srila Prabhupada describes, most of them will become criminals. And again, fill up the jail. So yes, we are in such a jail. And the cell that we are in is our body. And the bars are described to be sex life. And then Srila Prabhupada was giving the example of the bird in the cage, and he was explaining that the man took the bird in the cage into the field and opened the little door, and then the bird flew out and made a few circles in the sky and went back into the cage. Because, you know, there was food, it was secure, there was a nice, comfortable stick to sit on and everything. So the bird voluntarily went back into the cage. And in this way, voluntarily, the living being is becoming entrapped in the material energy. Voluntarily, we stay in jail. We are not condemned to stay in jail. We walked into jail and said, no, I want to be here. I don't want to go. Of course, once we are there, all right, then it gets a little more difficult to get out. But when we want, we can go. But we don't want. That is the point. We don't have a desire to go back to Godhead. We don't have a desire to become free from the material energy. Therefore, we need all kinds of interim solutions. Srila Prabhupada's solutions in the Matchless Gift storefront was a pot filled with gulab jamuns, which was always full. He somehow or other made sure that pot was never empty. And I feel that ISKCON has lost something since we don't have that anymore in the temples. I would propose to the GBC. Next resolution, all temples should again have the pot of gulab jamuns. We all vote in favor, I'm sure. So the point though is that we need something sweet on the way. We cannot just be motivated by the ultimate goal. That is a little bit too much, too high to motivate us all the time. Krishna Prem, yes. That's why we see that ultimately we can talk about Krishna Prem, and Krishna Prem is the ultimate goal of this process, Prema Pumarta Mahan. It is the ultimate goal of human life. But if we talk all day about Krishna Prem, then what about here and now? Because it seems so far away. Therefore, we need to relish here. And therefore, this movement is in this world organizing many wonderful festivals, many events where we can relish, where we can get taste now, immediate, even when we're not so exalted. So that is very important, that there is taste in the present. And we have to create that. And without Vaishnavas, there is no taste. Somehow or other, by karma, we are not only all living in different cells, not only living in different bodies, but these bodies all live in different places. And then you have one house here on a hill, and there another house behind the hill, and a house on an island, a house on a boat. You know, some people live in a caravan. You don't know where people live. You know, or even in a flat building, in an apartment building, a high-rise building. I have once lived in there for a little while in such a building, and I remember that in such a building nobody would ever speak with their neighbors. You would see the same people in the lift, in the elevator, and they would never say anything. Just completely silent, completely impersonal. Sometimes you would never see anyone except in the elevator, and sometimes at night you'd see a raincoat go into a car. That's all you'd see, some raincoat. Yeah, so remnants of impersonalism are deeply rooted in us. We need to search out the Vaishnavas, because together with the Vaishnavas we have a festival. Wherever Vaishnavas assemble, it is a festival. Because wherever there are Vaishnavas, there is kirtan, there is prasad, and what more is required? Some discussion on scripture. So all these things were going on. Just like here we're hearing about Haridas Thakur, and it's a gathering of Vaishnavas. It's a discussion, and it is a festival, because it is a festival, it is a celebration. We are all becoming purified just in the association of devotees. So it is a cause of great happiness, real happiness. I remember, unfortunately I remember what parties looked like. All the crazy things that were going on the parties. And then if one would forget something there and go back the next day, the smell, inconceivable smell. Inconceivable, what a stench. Right? What a stench. But somehow or other during the party, people are in that illusion that like, wow, this is amazing, this is fun. And then the next day you can't believe what you smell when you have to pick up what you forgot in some state of consciousness. So, unfortunately, we can't pick up everything that we forgot in those conditions. The ignorance is thick layers, so it takes us time. But so, we need to be with Vaishnavas. That is the point. I wish devotees would just, somehow or other, move closer to each other. I really feel that this thing of, there's no need, one in one house, one in another, just because I've always lived there. Move. Move. Why you have to live where you always lived? It's not going to be always anyway. It's temporary, believe me. So you may as well move now closer to the Vaishnavas. Living with Vaishnavas is powerful because that's where we chant Hare Krishna. Who has a kirtan by himself? It's maybe sometimes, but it's not the same. I do play harmonium all by myself. It's fun, it's nice. And they rock a little. But I never do crazy kirtans when I'm all alone. Of course, some people don't believe that. But so my conclusion is when I'm alone, I'm doing very peaceful kirtans. Therefore, my conclusion, it's not my fault that I'm doing crazy kirtans. Somehow or other, because alone I'm doing very peaceful kirtans. Anyway, the point is that in reciprocation with the Vaishnavas, it brings out so many things. To be with Vaishnavas, kirtan with Vaishnavas, or discussions on spiritual topics, all these things we do with Vaishnavas. Even in the company of Vaishnavas, we can eat more than we ever imagined we could. So, these things are essential. So, whatever it is, even if we live a little bit isolated, let's make it a point to visit the Vaishnavas regularly, as much as we can, or invite them and come together, because it is there where we chant. This movement is not a movement of many temples. This is a movement where people chant Hare Krishna at home. That is actually this movement. Yes. I remember Vrindavan. In the late 70s, I used to walk around Vrindavan in the evening, and just walking through the town, in every house there was kirtan. In every house. Everywhere. People were chanting those kirtan. And then TV made its entrance, and that was the end of the kirtan. And now TV is going out because we carry our electronics with us, and we can entertain ourselves all the time. And I have written somewhere, if we would touch our beats as much as our phone, then we would be very fortunate. That would be really wonderful. So yes, to simply come together, to simply chant Hare Krishna it's really most powerful, because that holy name is Krishna, the supreme purifier, and therefore everyone gets uplifted. Now, that is a festival. That is a festival. So that is why every year we come together for that purpose, for the purpose of elevating ourselves, of coming closer to the spiritual world, of another step closer, or of going back to Godhead. Here we are also bonding with the Vaishnavas. We are strengthening the Guru-disciple relationship. So this Vyasa-puja is important. One should not miss them. One should not. One should not think, oh, I have to work. Don't work. You don't have to work. You don't have to. No, I have to. No, you don't. It's just what we think. Organize it then. Organize it. Use your holidays now and book it now for next year. Then you don't have to work. If you take time and say, oh, I come from far. Yes, good. Come from far because it will take you far. By coming here, it will take you far. It will bind us. No one is eternal. I'm 65 now. My third birthday party, only one official one. Everybody does it. Okay. So, I'm on your third birthday party. You really feel you're 65. I am now. I'm definitely 65. So I don't know how long I'm going to live. I have no idea. But all these, imagine one day I'll be gone and then somebody never went. Missed out something. These are opportunities. These are valuable opportunities to go deeper in relationships, to go deeper in our sacrifice, deeper in our commitment, to really, and ultimately the whole formality of it all is an austerity, right? I mean, It's an austerity to have your feet washed with water that's too hot or water that's too cold, or even when the water is right, it's still an austerity to sit there, to be glorified. It's also an austerity to hear others speak and make offerings. It is an austerity to go through all these things. But this austerity is purifying. This austerity is actually is helping us when we hear others speak, and we hear. Then we also think, yes, maybe I should also do that. I should also maybe serve the way they serve. We have to hear from the other Vaishnavas about their spiritual life. It is essential. It is essential for going forward. So this tradition is not just something of some sort of institutional function which we have to have and go, do we have to have this? Can't we do something else? No, we should just look that the tradition is a spiritual tradition. In the spiritual world, people are meeting each other and offering arati as a way of greeting. Yeah. And we can, if we start that also, that would be quite good. Among devotees, just carry your tray with you. Sridhar Chaitanya here in Radhadesh instituted this program after the marathon. I don't know if they still do it, but it used to be. Here in Radhadesh, there was a book distribution marathon, and then at the end, they would not just glorify the Sankirtan devotees, but they extended the festival and became the Everybody Glorifies Everybody program. And it would go on forever. It was like, 6 hours or something like that, maybe more, maybe 8. It was like, physically it was almost deadly. But how can you sit so long, how stand so long, but it was amazing. Everyone got purified. Everyone glorified everyone, and in the end it was purifying. Even a cynical nerd like me had to admit that in the end, I come in these things and my Dutch mind go, like this, here we are to glorify forever. Oh my God, is this practical? My Dutch mind can come up with all these things, but even a Dutch mind gets purified in such programs. So let us somehow or other just do these things. Glorify the Vaishnavas, hear the Vaishnavas speak, and actually make friends. This year we did a little bit of social development, conference discussion, and to make us think for ourselves what shape we are given to our spiritual life, not just to go on automatic pilot, but to make choices that nourish us. Not just choices to be a rebel or choices to, be free, right? Because we're in jail in the material world, remember? So, freedom in jail is not so impressive, I am free, yeah, but you're still in jail. So let's get out of jail and go to the spiritual world where there's real freedom. But at the same time, let us walk the path of our heart in this movement. Let us actually begin to love. When we speak about Krishna Prem is not only the quality of the Uttama Adhikari, because it is said, Ishvarata Dadinesu Bali says it Visatchuja, Prema Maiti Kripopeksha Yakaroti Samajama. It is said that the Madhyam Adhikari, for Ishvara, for the Supreme Lord, he also has prema. Obviously not the same prema as the Uttama Adhikari, who is in an ocean of prema. Premamritam Bhurnidhi, the 6 Goswamis. No, but there is love. It is the same thing, but in a less developed state. It is so. We should start to love our spiritual life now. When spiritual life is duty, and only prescribed duty, and then after a while it becomes heavy duty. Then our spiritual life will become a burden. So some love is needed. And many things have been said about the history of ISKCON, and as far as the 80s are concerned, these days you were a dinosaur if you were around in the 80s, almost extinct species. What to speak in the 70s, and if you're from the 60s, well, what shall we say then? That is extraordinary. But one thing that was there in the 80s is there was this taste of giving out the mercy. Because somehow or other there was a system, it was a strong system, people had to go out. They were forced to go out. And that is true. There was a lot of pressure to go out. And but then once you were out there, it was a little hard to get out of the car. So first take a nap in the car, and then eventually after, I'm so tired that I need to rest. But after you woke up, then no more excuse, and then sort of had to go out. And then after a while, something would happen. Something where the mercy would go out, and where you'd actually feel it, that you just gave the mercy to someone else. And that you were an instrument of mercy, and that was so ecstatic. And that spirit of being an instrument of the mercy is really the beginning of love. That's where it begins. That's the Madhyam Adhikari's beginning of love. If we are not giving out the mercy, and we're not giving, that spirit of giving, no love. Love is giving. Love is giving. Therefore, we're missing something in this particular age, at this time now. We're missing a bit that spirit where everyone is part of it, of giving out that mercy. That we're missing a little. We are drinking ourselves quite nicely now. That we didn't do before. Pilata Bhagavatam Rasamaliyam. We didn't spend so much time hearing and chanting. We didn't have the same experience. I remember classes from the 80s, they were much more simple in a way. But, I remember one story which, anyway, no, I don't get into it. They want to hear it. Curiosity kills the cat. But anyway, so the Brahmana who passed stool and complained about the smell of the stool. And then the stool said, I was nice sabji before, but look what I became by your association. Now, that's a typical story I heard in many classes in the 80s, many times. Vedanta also heard it before. Did you? He acknowledges. So, whatever, the times have changed. That story, you don't hear it anymore. But whatever may be. But the spirit of giving, that was something electric. Because really, that is the way to develop Krishna prema. By giving this mercy, by becoming an instrument of this mercy, that is the way to become Krishna. to get Krishna praying. Not to sit under a tree and chant all day. Prabhupada was not impressed with these things. It was preaching. It was preaching that he emphasized, which means giving out the mercy. So yeah, that remains the one thing that will bring life to us, and nothing else will do it. That is the one thing that will awaken this Krishna praying in us very quickly. And we see it. One becomes selfless. Then we can sacrifice for the better welfare of others. Now you can do that by going on the street. You can do that by sitting in an office and making books. Like I'm looking, as I'm speaking, I'm looking at our local BBT man, and he's right now working on a Bhagavad Gita, which is 2 meters 80 by 2 meters in size. So, you know, that's preaching. I mean, you put that thing out there, people will come and look at that. That's for sure. And, you know, and they might find some faults also, so he's sweating right now to try and avoid that. So there's different ways of spreading Krishna consciousness. It's not all stereotype. But whatever it is, let us somehow or other think about that. That is the exciting thing. Let us think, how can I give Krishna consciousness to others? Like yesterday we saw our drama team, and they did a dance type of thing with the Bhagavatam, and let them do such stuff on the street as well. Not only in a castle, somewhere in the remote world, but right there on the sidewalk. Right there. That's where it belongs. Right? That's where so many people are. And let us take Krishna consciousness out on the street. I was recently in Cape Town, and Cape Town is the first city in the world that's running out of water. It's a big thing. You get 50 liters of water a day. I got a little extra. So sannyasis get 3 times a day. But even I was careful with water. And so, I mean, I came on the airport, and there was no water in the toilet. There's no water. You know, the taps, no water in the taps. There was only hand sanitizer. I walked out of the airport like that. Couldn't touch my beats anymore. Anyhow, so no water in Cape Town. It's a problem. And then recently, the BBC, which is very authoritative, isn't it? Right? The BBC published a list of 10 cities in the world that are going to be the first on the list where the water is going to run out. And guess what? London is on there. Did you ever think about that, Mr. UK? Glorifying the UK yesterday. They're going to run out of water. Right? So I was thinking, you should get that article. I can send you the link. And you should put it on a big board, you know, for people to read. And it will a water festival. And it has like, and then on the other side you have verses from the Bhagavatam about Anadristi and how there's going to be drought. And it's explained to people why there's going to be drought and why London's going to run out of water. Because there's no sacrifice. There you go, a great platform. Water festival. London running out of water. I mean, people will remember that, you know. And that's a different way that Hare Krishna can show his face. I have 100 ideas for you, or 1,000 if you want. Anytime. So let us somehow or other give the mercy to people, and in this way we reach out to them. And then we ourselves will feel, yeah, how this love of God is awakening. All right, I will end now. Any question or comment? Okay, Tulsi first.
Thank you very much. We know something about the chanting with the fences. Can you explain what is Namabhasa and Shuddhanam chanting?
Very short. Namabhasa is where we're trying to get purified, but we are still rooted in offenses. It's like when we have the 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name. It's not that, oops, I just by accident made an offense. No, we're always offensive, continuously. Our whole existence is offensive. We're one big offense. And what we think is normal is actually offensive. You know, the way people talk, it's just offensive. And it's just the mercy of Mahaprabhu, which doesn't count offenses, that helps us. It's just like, you know, it's easy to think something about someone else. It's easy to say something about someone else. We're basically offensive by inclination. So sometimes there's a clear moment that we're actually for a moment not offensive. Yeah. So that's Namabhasa. And then we get purified in this way, and then gradually, as the offenses really start to disappear, then we come to Sudhanam, to the pure chant of the holy. That's all I can say about it, without giving a seminar. Okay, Gurudas.
It's not much time in the day.
Therefore, a short question.
When spending time with Vaishnavas, isn't a lot of social, and is that not like...
Social. You can socially preach together, side by side, shoulder by shoulder, and just share the books and say, how's it going? Or you can just dance in Harinam and then just like, dance together. You can dress up and do your plays on the street with the Vaishnavas, and that's associating with the Vaishnavas. You're a funny man, Gurudas. You have his own stitches. Right? So why don't you do it to the people out there as well? Make them laugh. To make people laugh is if you have that power, that's a great gift. You can make people laugh. You know? So make them laugh. Together with some other devotees. And once they laugh, they'll eat out of their hand. Okay, so short.
I don't speak so much English, ¿puedo preguntar en español?
Sí, pero no demasiado. Sí.
¿Cómo puedo ser empoderado para atraer más gente y dar más?
How can we become empowered to attract more people to Krishna consciousness? By chanting Hare Krishna and serving the Vaishnavas, Lord Chaitanya says, Niranta Krishna Nama Sankirtan. Chant without stopping. Don't stop. Don't stop. Chant. Niranta Krishna Nama Sankirtan. And Vaishnava Seva. Serve the Vaishnavas. Quick.
Oftentimes we're just struggling with our own thing to preach our mind. By the time we have some energy left.
Okay, that's because we're suffering.
How do we preach after?
Oftentimes we're struggling with our own minds. How do we preach after that? Just distribute sweets. First some to yourself. and then start to... Sweets are very important in this movement. When we struggle, when we need some sweets. I mean, I can make a joke for Radha Chaitanya Prabhu. Even in the GBC meetings, they serve cake. And cookies and things like that. They do, The cakes and cookies like on the side, right, or in the evening. Because it's austere. It's austere to sit in these meetings. And they go on for a long time. So, when there's some sweet is needed. When you struggle, take sweets. And distribute them. Yes.
How to, in practical way, find this balance, like for doing service, for preaching, and for this introspection and...
Finding a balance is always difficult, because the circumstances change all the time. So therefore you have to all the time find a new balance. So you'll never, there's no such thing as ever, now I've got it solved, here's the balance. No. It's like riding a bicycle, you have to keep on balancing. So keep on balancing, both. I have 3 balls that I'm juggling. One ball is my own personal well-being, to look after, right? My spiritual well-being, my physical well-being. Another one is my sadhana, my bhajan. I have to be absorbed in hearing, chanting, and get some taste, some inspiration there. And then I have to do something with the mission. So I'm throwing the 3 balls. I'm sure as a girl you've done it. And there's always one in the air, one you're just catching, and one you're throwing. So look at the dynamics. One is getting your attention, the other one is just somewhere in the air, the other one needs to be caught. So these 3 interests you have to balance. Your personal well-being, your sadhana, and your preaching. Your mission, your service to the mission. And one needs to be caught. So when you are getting too much, sometimes personal well-being, okay, it's time, I'm going to put some energy now in service. You just half kill yourself in service, like when you guys are all gone, guess what I'm going to do? A little personal well-being. So the 3 balls, juggle them. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You gave the example of the bird in the cage. The bird which escapes from the cage, becomes spiritualized, flies in the spiritual skies. How would he see the valleys and the hills, on the material world? Are the Vaishnavas in the ascendancy, you think?
The liberated bird looks upon the world and sees that the world is ecstatic, because he is ecstatic. He sees the love of Krishna. See, he doesn't just see this world, he sees the love of Krishna behind this world. He sees it's all an arrangement of Krishna's loving arrangement to sort of bring back the living entities who've turned away from him, and he's sort of leading them back. So just see how kind is Krishna. So wherever he looks, he sees how kind is Krishna. So he looks up upon the world with loving eyes. Yeah, I see a hand. Yes, Krishna Kirtan.
Maharaj, how would you see your Vyasa-pujas after you leave?
After I leave, I haven't seen it. I'll see it from the spiritual sky.
How would you like it to go on?
How it should go on?
How would you like it to go?
I would like all of you to keep I would like you to preach. It may not become one big festival as big as now. It may be happening in different places, but at least I hope the spirit stays alive, that some preaching will always be connected to it. I mean, you can't say you've really celebrated my Vyasa-puja if you haven't connected some preaching. I wouldn't be fully satisfied. That's why I keep up this King's Day, as long as we can, because what can I say? Someone's mercy is going on. So yeah, come back next year and bring, and even those who didn't come. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll continue, right, at 10:30. Yes. So today, normally we have initiations in the morning, and then those devotees that are to be initiated are fasting. But because today we've moved it to the later part of the day, and yesterday's the Shinga-Chachadasi, it's not through austerity that we are going to conquer the spiritual world. So all my disciples are fasting till noon, so the candidates for initiation can also fast until noon and just take prasadam with everyone else and then come for the initiation. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it.
Holiness Kadamba Kanana Swami Maharaj ki Jai.